Hello friends, my name is Colin, and I can say this now, I finally, and I'm going to stress that word, finally, picked up my panniers and top case from my local Harley Davidson dealer. It's a back order nation, baby. So today, I'm going to give you my opinion, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, honestly. I really want to give you some good feedback on this. I'm going to give you my take on why everything seems to be on back order. I'm going to relate it back to my 2021 Pan America right here. And I'm also related to my 2017 Street Glide Special and kind of tie it all into the motorcycle industry in general. I think it was around March or April this year. My wife went outside to our deck and she says, you know what? We are in dire need for some new patio furniture. And I looked at it, I said, absolutely we are. We've had this stuff for like 10 years, it was falling apart. So we do what most normal people do. We go down to the place that sells these, like a local hardware store. And we go in, find a bunch that we like, all the displays. Get the dude over there, and sure enough, first thing out of his mouth, it's out of stock. She's like, well, how about this one? Out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. I heard that thing like 5 or 6 times. Everything that seems like we actually wanted happened to be out of stock. So we left and we started looking online. Sure enough, same exact thing. So unbelievable, everything was out of stock. So I'm going to do a little time warp here. We're going to go back to 2020, and let's say, when did this whole damn thing start, the pandemic? I think it was like March or April, I think, of 2020. And the buying patterns all were the same before this. Then all of a sudden, when this came out, do you remember what really like sold and you couldn't keep in stock? It was like, I mean, people freaked out. It was like a snowstorm. They went out and bought toilet paper. They went out and bought paper towels and hand sanitizer. And then people like lined up to go to stores waiting for this stuff to come in. It was like silly. And this lasted for several months. And then now with that, there's a bunch of buyers from companies. So like in business, you're going to have, different retailers throughout the country, and all their buyers, they place orders. And this is through any company, right? And they're always ahead, like maybe like 6 to 9 months ahead of the season. So for instance, if they're buying for Christmas, they're usually doing that like in February, March range. They're always buying ahead, they're thinking ahead. Now with this pandemic, all of these folks that place orders were very shy. They became very timid because they didn't know any of the buying patterns that were going to happen with goods, obviously, because they didn't know how it was going to play out. So they did that, and then, we were still going through sales ticks of a bunch of different commodity items. And then this thing happened, and I believe it was in the summertime, I can't exactly remember. But they had this thing called a stimulus. So a lot of people got some extra money. And that happened throughout the world, actually, not just the United States. So what do you think happened? So all these buyers for these companies that were timid and didn't buy a lot of stock, they start selling out of a ton of stuff. Because all those people that started buying stuff, they were basically depleting the physical inventory that they had on hand at that time. And then they couldn't keep up. And then all of a sudden, as these companies ramped up their production to try to get back in stock, then you had this, and I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but we had several companies in the United States that actually shut down production for several weeks. It actually happened at Harley too. They shut down production for several weeks where they couldn't make anything. So you've got that coupled with people trying to buy stuff, hence everything became on back order, right? And then that went on for, several months. It went into the busy time of most retailers, which is like Christmas time where everybody buys stuff. And if you notice, the shopping patterns completely changed. So everybody started buying a lot more online. And with online, let's be honest, majority of the stuff comes from overseas. Not everything, but a majority of stuff does. So same thing happened with all this uptick in online ordering. The ports started getting closed due to COVID. So one of these ports would close, and then you'd have all these containers sitting at the dock, couldn't get in, and that's still today, actually, that as I speak of this, that's still happening today. But it happened a lot last year. Hold on a second, I gotta make a right turn here, because I really don't want to run into this big old dump truck. So as those things were happening, the customers, the people that were ordering, were getting told it's delayed, delayed. And then you had that thing last year, and I don't remember where it was. I think it was in Malaysia or Vietnam, where they had that factory that makes chips. It burned down. So how that impacted the entire automotive industry and motorcycle industry as well, because they couldn't produce chips. And how many, people that have you heard that have been waiting for a new vehicle in 2021 and waiting months for it? I've seen people wait up to 6 to 9 months just for a vehicle that they ordered. Can't control it. It's all because of those chips. And then you have this thing called a labor shortage, which is a huge deal. So once this whole pandemic started, to actually produce the raw materials fell behind, to produce the goods fell behind, because you didn't actually have a correct labor force to do all this. Now that's a topic I could go off on, but that's not for this video. The sake of this is I'm just going to give you my take on backorder. But that's a topic and it's all by itself, right? So as we get into 2021, or we're midway through 2021 right now, the same thing is happening. However, the big thing that's happening now is your shipping. So shipping has gone through the roof, the prices have. Exorbitant, right? So with everybody doing online shopping, and if you look at your top companies last year, not just Amazon, but if you look at your top companies, their digital sales last year went through the roof, some even up to 300% in some companies. So a lot more people are buying online. So it's a trickle-down effect. So now that you have that, now you have all the shipping costs. And remember I talked about labor shortage? Don't forget, one of the biggest labor shortages we've had are the trucker shortages. So that stuff that's stuck at port, once it gets to port and they finally unload it, they don't have the freaking truck drivers to get it into the distribution centers for all these companies. So now you're behind, you're months behind. So let's take it to kind of the current state of affairs of what happened with me. So with this bike, I got lucky. I'll be the first to admit it. When it first came out in February of 2021, I did a pre-order. I was one of those ones that did the deposit. I think there were 500 or something that they did a deposit for, and I think it was like 482 if I remember right. So I barely made it, so I got an order placed in. And originally it was supposed to be in, I think, May. I didn't get this till second week of July, so it was late. Now, most bikes that I've seen on the road, the people that got them earlier, they were all the orange and white ones. This one's Gauntlet Gray. So I don't know if that took a little bit longer. But saying that, all the accessories, with the exception of 2, were all on back order. I had to wait. And like I said, those panniers just came in, and I've been waiting almost 2 months for this. And so here's where I want your opinion. So right now, if you go, there's 2 things I want to ask your opinion on. Right now, if you go into a Harley dealership, you remember I talked about earlier in the cars and the chip shortage and everything, and then how it all kind of ties into raw materials. And you go to a dealership now, how many new bikes do you see? Really? I mean, like 10%, maybe 15. I've been to a couple dealerships. I visited one in Florida, my local one. It's anemic. Most of the bikes they have on there are all used. Now, is that because of Yoke and Zeitz that decided to cut inventories? Or is that more of the pandemic where they didn't actually have the raw materials to get the bikes in? Let's relate that back to this bike. So specifically this bike, the Pan America. So hypothetically speaking, let's say Harley made 4,000 Pan Americas in 2020. I don't know if that's accurate, but let's just say it. Of those 4,000, 2,400 of them were allocated just for America, and on the rest of them were allocated for the rest of the world, right? So, did Harley miss the boat because they didn't order enough and they didn't anticipate the sales of this thing? Because these things are almost impossible to get now. If you order one now, you're waiting a long time to get one, unless they have a demo model on the floor or something like that. But anyway, as you do these things, or as Harley did these things, which is it? Is it because they didn't have the products, the raw materials to produce all this stuff, or is it because they underestimated it? That I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little of both. I mean, you could say that honestly with this whole entire back order thing throughout the nation. Is it the raw materials? Is it the manufacturer's problem? Is it the shipper? I think it's all of the above. So it all kind of plays out in kind of how one thing kind of, trickled down, from last year where everything shut down and you're still playing catch up to this day. But I will tell you one thing, you're going to see a price increase. You're going to see a price increase across the board in a lot of different things, not just commodities. You're going to see it in motorcycles. I guarantee in 2021, you're probably going to see an increase in labor cost. You're probably going to see definitely in motorcycle cost. Now, I don't know. Like I said, I'm giving you my opinion, but they got to pay for this somehow, and shipping to kind of offset all that shipping, that's how they're going to do it, because the shipping cost, if you look now, it's insane, and there's such a backlog to get stuff shipped. So that's the country we live in right now. We can't control it, right? We just kind of have to take it up the proverbial ass and just understand that control what you can control. I couldn't control that I had to wait. There's still two things on this bike, my tank bag and my tall risers, that have not come in yet. What are you going to do, right? I can't control that. You know, I'm waiting on bars now for almost 2.5 months for my Street Glide Special. I'm getting a pair of 12-inch choppers for some new bars. I'm still waiting on that. Now, hopefully, I got an email last week saying they're going to be here soon, which is great. What are you going to do? So I want to get your opinion. I want to see if you thought my thought process and how this all came about is, you know, tracking along the right track, I guess. So that's all I have for today. Now get out there and ride, hopefully on something that you're not waiting on a bike for or anything back order. Be well, and I'll talk to you guys soon.